Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of This Old Deck. And in this one, we're going to use it as an excuse, I suppose, to look at some shadows. So this might be a little bit shorter video, but hopefully it'll be interesting nonetheless. So the deck actually we're going to start off from is something called a deck called Shadowboxing, which is from this book again. Now, what's interesting in this book is that the book came out just before Tempest was due to be released. And if you know a little bit about Tempest, I think this is the period I get the impression. So the first sort of proper block, if you like, would have been Mirage. But I always felt that they really started to get into things properly in terms of block design around the time of Tempest. Plus there's a few other interesting things going on, and one of them is it's the first set to feature pre-constructed theme decks. So it was as if, you know, all the Magic product was starting to get in step with everything. We've started to see things that in different forms you see today. So, you know, like a set and some decks to go with it, and then a starter, you know, thing possibly that had come out with, I think 5th edition had some starter material with it because 5th edition had come out. But the book was released just before they released Tempest. But what they did, which is really interesting, is in the book the final chapter is Tempest decks, but they were added after the author sent the book for printing. So the author never saw the decks. They were provided by Wizards, and there is a number of decks in here: Slivers deck, Flames of Wrath, Deep Freeze, Tropical Swarm, Rise My Minions, Shadowboxing. Yeah, that's it. Now what you'll notice is up here you've got some decks that clearly ended up being, you know, used, I suppose. I don't know if they're exactly the same. So there was a Flames of Wrath one, which is also in the book. It's either probably the same or very close. Flames of Wrath. Does that have Blood Frenzy? Now also what they did with these decks is they had a recommended advanced deck as well. I don't know if anybody's seen me unbox some of these earlier theme decks, but when you got them they had the deck listing and the deck, and then the booklet would also have some suggestions how to make a more advanced version of the deck in here. But clearly some of the decks conceptually, card wise, that were mentioned in the book do ultimately end up turning up when they physically release them. However, some don't, and one of them is the Shadowboxing deck. And if you go through, I think none of these decks, although they, if you know, go through to further points in the block, so this is, you know, way after the book's come out. So the book comes out just before Tempest is released. Tempest gets released, has some decks in it from the book. Some of the decks in the book aren't used, and also don't turn up in any reconfigured form in the, you know, subsequent sets in the block. Now, Shadowboxing, as I said, is interesting because I think there are no specific shadow decks as such, but there are decks that feature shadow in them, if you know what I mean. So it looks like they didn't specifically do a deck because for that set, I think what shadows mainly, you know, it's black and white and blue, yeah, there. So there are some of these which have, you know, some shadow cards in them, but I think I went through quickly and I couldn't see any deck, particularly that had a, definitely a really heavy shadow theme like you find in the one that's in the book. So that's why I wanted to do this particular episode. So let's have a look at the deck now. I've done that convoluted preamble. So just as an overview, just to see what it looks like in terms of the artwork. So yeah, pretty grim looking deck artwork wise in terms of looks. Yeah, quite foreboding. I don't know if that's the correct word to use, but I think you know what I mean. Yeah, ominous looking deck. Yeah, some of these shadows look pretty creepy in here. So let's just switch to deck list view, find it a little bit easier. Not so much going on. So we've got 19 creatures in the deck. Douthie Ghoul, 2 of those. So it's mainly like you can see 2 and 1s, the odd 3, and then we've got, obviously some. There's quite a number of lands here, which is interesting. I'm not sure whether I'd have to look again. I'll put the book to one side, but it'd be interesting to note whether the other decks. I mean, I can imagine in their final form, the other decks were pretty straightforward, yeah. So I don't know if I could ever imagine them releasing anything quite like this as a theme deck. Douthie Ghoul, 1 and a black with, you can see the curve here, which is interesting. Oh yeah, Douthie Ghoul, 1 and a black with shadow. This creature can block or be blocked by only creatures with shadow. Whenever any creature with shadow is put into graveyard for play, put a +1/+1 on Douthie Ghoul. Salty Emissary. It gains shadow, single white, till end of turn. So 2/1 for 2. Sultai Monk, protection from black, shadow. So protection from black and shadow, but not, that's not protection from shadow. Saltari Priest, protection from red with shadow on it. Douthie Mercenary, another shadow creature, 2 and a black, 3/1. Sorry, did I say mercenary? I meant marauder. Douthie Mercenary, 2 and a black, 2/1 shadow, and it has sort of, this basically black fire breathing on it. So 1 and a black, +1/+0, and you can push as much mana as that as you have available. So it's a mana sink. Soltari Crusader with shadow, 1 and a white. So this is interesting. So this is a white card but with fire breathing on it. It's +1/+0, and you can see there. So they're the I'm sure what mirrors, yeah. Thalakos Dream. So I suppose a true mirror would have, this one would be what, +0/+1. Dream Sower, this is the blue one with shadow. You may choose not to untap Thalakos Dream Sower during your untap phase. Thalakos Dream Sower damages any opponent tap target creature. As long as Thalakos Dream Sower remains tapped, that creature does not untap during its controller's untap phase. Mistfolk, shadow, single blue, put it on top of owner's library. 2 and a blue, 2/1. Douthie Mind Ripper, another shadow. So I think of all of these apart from, whoops, yeah. So everything apart from Marble Titan either has shadow or can gain it. Yeah, well, okay, so sack it. Defending player chooses and discards 3 cards. Uses ability only if Douthie Mind Ripper is attacking and unblocked. 2/1 for 4. Marble Titan, another 3-drop. Creatures power 3 or greater do not untap during their controller's untap phases. So in this deck, it would only affect itself in terms of... So it doesn't care if it's tapped or untapped. Okay. But if you did attack it and it tapped, then you wouldn't be able to untap it to use it to attack. But there's only... Oh, I say only. No, sorry. I got it. So it's 3 or greater. So yeah, sorry. Jumped the gun a bit there. I was thinking, yeah, greater than 3, not 3 or greater. So, yeah, unfortunately, it does cause some problems with your own creatures. And there is just a single copy of that. Got Power Sync. It's a counter spell. Counter target spell unless its caster pays an additional X. If he or she does not, tap all mana producing lands that player controls and remove all mana from his or her mana pool. Whispers of the Muse, single blue, has buyback 5 on it. Draw a card. 3 counter spells, 2 blue. Diabolic Edict, 1 on the back, target player sacrifices a creature. Disenchant, 2 of those, 2 and a white, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Dark Banishing, 2 of those, destroy target non-black creature, that creature cannot be regenerated this turn. And then 1 Dismiss, counter target spell, draw a card. So it's pretty cool. We've got access to blue, black and white mana, so yeah, it's a pretty cool instance there. In terms of removal, sorceries, we've got Repentance, target creature deals to itself, deals to itself. Start again. Target creature deals to itself damage equal to its power. And then Time Warp. 3 and 2 blue. Target player takes an extra turn after this one. And as you'll probably notice, and is obviously, would be the case, all of these cards are indeed from Tempest. So we've got 5 islands, a Maze of Shadows, 1 colourless mana to your mana pool, tap, untap, target attacking creature with shadow. That creature neither deals nor receives combat damage this turn. 5 planes, 2 reflecting pools, which are the most expensive cards in the deck. Tap, add to your mana pool 1 mana of any type that any land you control can produce. 3 root water depths, and 1 colourless mana to your mana pool. Tap, add blue or black to your mana pool. Root water depths does not untap during your next untap phase. 3 salt flats, which is one of this annoying these tap lands, so they come into play tapped. They add 1 colourless mana to your mana pool, and to add insult to injury, if you want to generate, in this case, white or black mana, it deals 1 damage to you. We've got 5 swamps, and then Thalakos Lowland, which is one of the other ones that does come into play untapped. But when you do, if you need to tap it for the coloured mana, in this case the white or blue, then it doesn't untap during your next untap phase. So yeah, slow land or whatever they're called. So that's the deck. Looks pretty interesting. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to have a quick look through some shadow cards, because I thought it was interesting to see, because we're dealing with a deck where all of the cards are from Tempest. Like, what happened after that to Shadow? So first of all, let's just see what in totality in Tempest was available. So there's actually 27 cards which have the word Shadow somewhere in their rules text. So you have things like Circle of Protection Shadow. Then you've got a number of creatures. You can see we've got soldiers and knights. There's a cleric there, Soltari Monk, Soltari Priest, Soltari Trooper. Then in blue, because I've got these organised by colour, we've got Shadow Rift. So this is an instant which has Shadow mentioned on it. Thalakos Dreamsower, Thalakos Misphos, Thalakos Seer, Thalakos Sentry. So you can sort of see a pattern here with the naming in the different colours and the shadows. Douthie, Ghoul, Horror, Marauder, Mercenary, Mind Ripper, Slayer, here, shadow on it. And then there's some red ones as well. But these are anti-shadow, if you like. So Shadow Storm deals 2 damage to each creature with shadow. Wall of Diffusion can block creatures with shadow. The green one can block creatures with shadow. Target creatures with shadow until end of turn. So there were some anti-shadow cards in the colours that didn't have shadow in them. We've got a white-red multicolour card with shadow. Signs combat damage to an opponent. You may redirect that damage to target creature. There is an artifact with this ability on it. So tap, a 2, tap, choose flying, first strike, trample or shadow. Target creature with ability loses it until end of turn. Another target creature gains that ability until end of turn. So it's like moving shadow around, which is interesting. Also Phyrexian Splicer, pretty cool artwork. And Maze of Shadows. So 1 colourless mana, 2 mana pool, we saw this already. And just to sort of clarify here on where it is on the rarity curve, because that's always interesting to see. There you go, so 14 at common. And you can sort of see where the anti-shadow stuff is there. Okay. If we move on to uncommon, what have we got? 11 cards. And that's where our Shadow Storm is, and our land, our non-basic land, and our artifact. And at the higher rarity, we've got Soltari Emissary and Soltari Gorillas. Now, if we look back at the deck in here and ignore the things that are just sort of regular, non-shadow magic cards, it looks like is Soltari Emissary. Yeah, is in it. There's 1 copy of that. But Soltari Gorillas is not. And it's interesting as well, that's that is in white-red. It does have shadow on it. So it's combat damage to an opponent, then you may redirect that damage to target creature. Okay. So if you look after that period, so we had the ones from what was it, Tempest, and then you go into the sets by release date order that had some sort of shadow cards in them. We've got Soltari Champion, Thalakos Deceiver, Dauthi Trapper. So in Stronghold, we've got 1 of each from each of the colours. Then if we move into Exodus, so that's the third set in the block, we've got Soltari Visionary in white, Thalakos Drifters in blue, and also Thalakos Scout in blue. And then in black we've got Dauthi Cutthroat, Dauthi Jackal and Dauthi Warlord. And I think I'm right, even at that point, do we have anything? So again, we've got with these decks, yes, there are some that do have shadow stuff in them, but there's quite a bit of like non-shadow stuff. So yeah, they were sort of putting an appearance here and there, but as far as I can see, there was no specific deck that was dedicated to these. I've got this deck, the Migraine deck, I think. Have I? Or am I thinking of another card? Yeah, I may have got muddled up. I thought I had the Migraine deck. I did build it in some form. Maybe I built it online. Yeah. I have to look back through my collection. Pretty sure I would have been through, if I had any decks from this period, I would have been through them. Yeah, these look familiar. The trouble is I've done so many videos now, I lose track of what ones I've talked about in theory and what ones I've actually talked about in practice in terms of owning them in paper. Then we get up to an interesting period here. So we've got, this would be time spiral. So we sort of revisit shadow in time spiral. So temporal isolation is a non-creature card, but with enchanted creature has shadow. Zealot Ilvec, shadow on it. Drifter Ildal, Looter Ilkor, Shadow Sliver, Faceless Devourer, Nether Traitor. You can see it's quite a number here. Stronghold Overseer, Traitor's Clutch, Trespasser Ilvec, Aetherflame Wall is another anti-shadow card. So the red and the green ones have a way of dealing with shadow in some way. And then also we've got shadow cards cropping up in Plane of Chaos, which is in the same block, just one there, and then also Future Sight. So Augur Ilvec, Spirit Endal, Infiltrate Ilkor, Cutthroat Ildal, Stronghold Rats as well. And you can see, as was the case, a lot of these were combined up with other things. So we got Shadow with Forecast, Shadow with Suspend, Shadow with Hellbent as well. And then we get up to more recently, M14, but it's not Shadow, it's just because it's Shadowborn Apostle, so that doesn't count. And we also have Ominous Seas, which I think, 4 shadow counters, so that doesn't count either. So so they're just in because they have shadow somewhere in the rules text, but they aren't actually shadow. They're Shadowborn and 4 shadow. And so basically only, so 2 blocks. The original Tempest block, and then again it was sort of brought out of retirement for the time spiral block. They didn't do anything crazy, did they? Like they didn't colour shift anything. So I can't see there being any colour shifted frames here. So it doesn't look like they colour shifted anything. And they didn't future sight anything. There's no like the future sight borders on it here as well. So for those sort of special slots where they did what I'm just trying to think, time shifted, colour shifted, or future shifted. I think that was one from each. But when you look at it, you can sort of see some interesting twists here. Like this one has, I suppose, got like I'm trying to even remember what it was called back in the day. But we have to pay a certain amount to keep it in play. That's got oh god, looting on it, is it? Draw a card, draw a card then discard a card, so it's looting rather than rummaging. That's got looting on it. That's doing some interesting things in the in terms of exiling shadow creatures. So it's a shadow creature that hates on other shadow creatures. That's Graveyard Recursion. That does an interesting thing. So creatures with shadow get +1/+0 until end of turn, and creatures without shadow get -1/-0. Okay. I don't know if that's an effect I've ever seen before. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole on many of these. I'm going to include the link and people can go down their own favourite rabbit holes, I think, here. I was more just intrigued by the sort of lack of shadows in the set and how they looked from a helicopter view. Okay. Some definitely interesting things going on in this block, as was the case. Oh, it's got suspend on it. Right, let's just go down this rabbit hole here. I thought that said pus head for a moment. I'm thinking, what? Metallica artist did Magic the Gathering? No, but it's pudding head. 2 black creatures with shadow get +1/+0 until end of turn, and creatures without shadow get -1/-0 until end of turn. So fire breathing, Cindy shadow. They don't really have a name for this, do they? I don't know. Yeah, -1, -0. There isn't a card called Strangle. Yeah, I don't know. 5 synergy shadow cards. The other thing is, of course, some of these cards have in fact been reprinted. So even though, shadow hasn't appeared in a set in a new form beyond those cards we've seen, some of these have been reprinted. If we just look at these ones here, and how can I do that? Is there an easy way to, hang on, I know what to do that for. Boom. Tempest, Vintage Masters, so that's online only. Tempest Remastered. That was in the Battle Royale set. The list that does come up on was in the Championship decks. That's turned up in quite a few special printings. Is there anything in here that's ever turned up in anything else? Wow. Oh, I did. There was one here. Commander Legends. I don't ever remember seeing any Commander precons, personally. Not surprisingly, we got several here that were reprinted for Tempest Remastered, which is possibly what made me think about doing this episode after I opened some of those packs. I was going to go back then. I've gone down this rabbit hole. Let me do full Stronghold, Exodus, Tempest Remastered. That's probably what we're going to see, aren't we? Mainly Tempest Remastered. I don't know if any of these. Oh, there was. I keep forgetting, of course, Time Spiral Remastered. Oh my word! I forgot about that set. Oh, that was in the Magic Online theme decks. I don't suppose they've ever, no, it's not a shadow creature, but I was just going to look. I don't think they've ever done a Shadowborn Apostle commander deck, have they? It's isn't that pretty at one point that's pretty expensive to build. It's not too bad. I think did I ever build that online? I think I might have done. Possibly, yeah. Anyway, those don't really count, but what the hell. The other thing is I was looking through this, which suddenly something bounced into my head. As all these musical references I got, as soon as I saw this, I was suddenly minded to Curtain Call by The Damned, because isn't there a line in it, in Curtain Call, that goes, shadow boxing with yourself just seems to get you nowhere? That seems to have bounced into my head. So any Damned fans out there, let me know if I got that right. Okay, thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.